live in 3, 2.
Hi, everybody. I'm Arizona State Senator Sonny Borrelli. I'm currently the Senate Majority Whip. I want to welcome you here today. What we're trying to do is show you exactly what we got going on. Listen, when the audit was completed back in 20, and we had an audit report that was done for that in September. However, we didn't stop looking. We didn't stop digging. When one phase was done, we went into another phase. And one of the things that we found out from the audit was the ballot signatures on the envelope, okay? And we tried to do a signature analysis on that, and Dr. Shiva, who's got an MIT professor, has got credentials as long as my arm, and since the county would not give us the voter registration forms to validate and verify signatures in the envelope to a voter registration, it wouldn't give that to us. So they had to go through other public records requests and other sources to get signatures to try to verify that the name on the ballot envelope was legit. Naturally, we were discredited because we didn't use the source that the county's elections are supposed to use, which is the signature on the voter registration. Well, we didn't stop there, and we obtained voter registration documents that actually has the signature of the registered voter and compared that to what is on the ballot envelope. Now, this is just a tip of the iceberg. We've only had the team analyze this, and have only actually analyzed 5% of what the total 2 million ballots in Maricopa County. Now, this is not an indictment or attack on Maricopa County. What we're trying to do is show you exactly, as future legislators, that's what we need to do the next legislative session. We need to tighten up legislation to fix things because we need to close loopholes and any cracks in the system, because if the system gets compromised, then we have a problem, and then it just gets amplified because we never fixed it. So one of the reasons, the main purpose of this is to identify what's broken, if anything is broken, and let's fix it. If it's broken, let's fix it. That's our responsibility. That's our role in government. That's what we were elected to do. So what we need to find out what's broken, and let's fix it going forward. But we need to analyze. If you can't find out what's broken, how do you fix it, right? So this is exactly what we have. So any system will work as long as you stick to the system and you follow the law. Everything that you're going to see here today is actually covered in statute that needs to be followed, and some things weren't followed, but these are the things that we need to identify, and hopefully the current election directors and county recorders that are in office now actually see what we found from 2020, and they actually employ those standards that they're supposed to be doing, and that way this next election cycle is proper and done right. So if you identify a problem and they can see it, they know what to look for. So hopefully this will shed some light onto that for them, so that way they can hone their skills and fine tune their craft, because that's what they're trying to be as professional as possible. I always say, what is more important, speed or accuracy? I believe the citizens of Arizona demand accuracy, not speed. But anyway, I'm gonna let the presentation, this slideshow, show you exactly what we found, and I'll let you be the judge, especially those that are at home watching. You be the judge to see if we're off base or something. But this is just it's good awareness. So we're not attacking anybody, but we need to say something's not right here. Let's identify it. Let's go forward. And if I can turn that over to my tech person back there in the back, can actually start this off. Thank you very much.
So I'm going to start by saying that all of this analyzation was done under the training and guidance of the Arizona Secretary of State Training Manual. So everybody who had influence in this project had to go through the same training that signature verification workers receive at the county directly from the Secretary of State, and it's the same training used in multiple states. So first off, we identified 609 voters that cast a ballot in the 2020 election issued until after the 2020 election. So these 609 voters that were given to them between January 21 and March of 2021, yet those voter IDs cast a ballot. We identified 9 voters whose voter ID was canceled between 2017 and 2020, yet they were able to vote a straight ballot in 2020, not provisional. We identified 128 people who have 2 voter IDs assigned to them. Both ballots were cast in the 2020 election, and it resulted in potentially 128 additional illegal votes. The following voters had ballots cast in their name. They will continue to receive duplicate ballots, and this has not been corrected and will happen again. If you notice on these, there are separate dates. You can tell it's the same registered voter. There are identifying factors in the signatures and the names, but the dates are different, and these were accepted ballots. This particular one didn't have a phone number on either ballot, and one of them was not dated. The ones that you saw previously, the last several, were actually caught during the election by the county, and the envelopes were merged together under one ID, effectively hiding the fact that 2 images or 2 ballots were cast under one voter, and they were not reported to authorities. The next issue we found was ballot envelopes that stated signature inside. This is a big problem. Envelopes are not supposed to be opened until after they are validated. Opening the ballot before signature is validated is a violation of ARS 16552. Section F states, take the ballot out without unfolding it or permitting it to be opened or examined, and show by the records of the election that the elector has voted. If the voter is not allowed, the affidavit containing the early ballot shall not be opened. When the envelope is opened, the ballot is not to be unfolded or inspected per ARS 16552. Doing so violates the secret ballot law, which is a violation of the Federal HAVA Act. Here is an example of this scenario. As you can see, the ballot is stamped verified and approved by MC Tech, which means somebody verified this ballot. Either they took the voter's word for it, that they had signed it inside the envelope and opened it, or they opened it and inspected it for a signature, which violated the Privacy Act. There were wrong signatures on the AFSEEKs. An AFSEEK is what we call the Arizona voter registrations. It's an affidavit sequence. It's the voter registration attached to the voter ID. The signature on the registration does not belong to the voter. Here's an example of that image. As you can see, the signer has a completely different name than the person attached to his actual voter registration. I can confirm to you that the registration is under the name of the voter, not the signer. We found multiple voters that do not match the signature on the registration prior to the 2020 election, and new registrations were inserted that are different or now a match to the 2020 ballot on February 3rd, 2021. Here is an example. This person registered on 7/4/2020. You can see the signature on the right-hand side of the screen. The ballot envelope affidavit received does not match, yet it was allowed to pass through signature verification. But then, look towards the bottom of the screen. On February 3rd, 2021, a signature matching the 2020 ballot envelope has now been inserted into the voter file. Here's another example of the exact same scenario. Registration on 5/21/2020, new signature on ballot envelope, which is received and counted, and on February 3rd, 2021, a matching affidavit. This person registered on September 25th, 2018. The ballot image does not match, was received and counted in signature verification, and then on February 3rd, 2021, a matching registration was inserted into the system. There's another scenario of the exact same thing, this one registering in 17, signature changing for 2020 election, and a new registration to match on February 3rd, 2021. The next fault we found was the Special Elections Board. Special Election Board, known as SEB, is pursuant to ARS 16549. The special election boards are there to protect voters in a procedure when they fall ill or have a disability that does not allow them to go to the poll or sign or fill out their ballot on their own. SEB shall assist any disabled or ill voter while casting a ballot. SEB has an expense account available to travel to the voter's home, hospital, or nursing home. Ballots were marked voter unable to sign due to COVID restrictions. Adrian Fontes and Secretary Hobbs introduced this policy. They were sued for in case CB 2020-011845 by Attorney General Brnovich. Eventually, the court did rule that due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the SEB would be granted iPads that they could travel with, and that would give them the ability to send an iPad into the voter's home or facility to sign via iPad under witness of an SEB worker with zero contact. COVID restriction did not allow for relaxing signature requirements for the elderly or nursing home residents. These ballots do not clearly show cause for such a concession and do not contain a sign-off signature or reason by an SEB concession and why it was granted. This envelope was received blank. It went through curing and was documented voter unable to sign due to COVID restrictions, verified and accepted by MTech. Here's an additional example. Also under Special Elections Board, SEB, again pursuant to ARS 16549, Special Election Board's expenses are covered for ill electors or electors with disabilities. Voters that mark their envelope must be witnessed by an SEB official. A mark could be an X, a line, or something indicating their signature in the event they're unable to sign in full. Ballots that are marked in witness of an SEB contain an SEB official marking to validate that mark. Here is an example. This is an X signature that does not match the voter's registration affidavit. However, it is signed off by an SEB team member verifying that the mark was done by the voters. Here is another example of a witness vote. Our team found several of these where the ballots were located having no SCB witness marking, some of which never even went through the curing process to verify legitimacy. What you're seeing on the left is the ballot affidavit envelope marked with an X and a voter registration with a different signature. On the additional one here, it's an X marked. This one did not go through curing. It clearly does not match. And on the bottom right corner, you can see it was documented on the registration in 2014 that it was a suspicious voter because the date of birth did not match. Blank envelopes pursuant to 16.550, receipt of a voter's ballot during a curing period. If the signature is missing, the county recorder or other officer in charge of elections shall make a reasonable effort to contact the elector, advise the elector of the missing signature, and allow the elector to add the elector's signature not later than 7 p.m. on election day. Blank envelopes, unlike mismatched signed envelopes, are not open to the 5-day curing period. Finalization of signature must be made on election day. Blank envelopes do not have that same period and must be signed by 7 p.m. on election day. This envelope was received by the county on 10/19/2020 blank. It went through signature verification, was sent to management queue, and stamped and verified without a voter's signature. As you can see, this particular one not only does not have a signature, it has no phone number or date. Names other than the voter signing the ballot. The ballot affidavit itself states that a ballot will not be counted without your signature. Power of attorney are not valid for voting purposes. Only the voter may sign. If anything changes, an SCB worker is the only one that can intercede. Nobody is allowed to sign a ballot on behalf of another voter. Ballots were signed by other household members and labels were swapped for the signers to exchange ballots. This practice was repeated hundreds of times, but does appear to be something thought of as acceptable, even though it technically violates the law. Here are some examples of how that works. Voter to the left accidentally signs a ballot envelope for voter on the other side. Down below, you will see those same envelopes have been swapped with stickers, and the outline of the sticker prints new name and addresses to match the signature. Here is another example of that scenario. Again, this is something we have talked to other election officials, and when a husband and a wife accidentally mix up their ballots, it does happen, and this has been considered part of acceptable practice. However, the same is not true for many of the ballots that we found in our analyzation. They are clearly signed by another voter and accepted as is through signature verification without any adaptation, changes, modifications, or approvals. Here is an example of a ballot signed. The voter is Jesus, and as you can see, the signature does not match the ballot, the registered voter's affidavit, and it's signed by somebody completely different. Here is another example of that scenario. And again, these affidavits were not sent through a hearing process. They were accepted as is. The Arizona Secretary of State canceled voters out of their voter system. We identified over 1,400 voters that were canceled by the Arizona Secretary of State, listing the reason deceased. A.G. Brnovich has given a ruling that counties who maintain their own voter rolls must still run concurrently with the Secretary of State and should run as closely to real time as possible, but no longer than 24 hours. Unfortunately, these Secretary of State deceased voters were left on county voter rolls across the state of Arizona, and some of them continued to vote. We analyzed only 30 of 1,283 and found 17 of the 30 were dead voters. Some voting in multiple elections after their death. Since 2016, we found unduplicated dead voter count to be 14,772 voters in the state of Arizona, and a total ballot cast of 33,881 dead voter ballots cast from 16 to present. In the 2020 election, that number of voters was 1,283, and we have analyzed 30. Here are some of the examples of the voters we found. For the privacy of the families, we have redacted the obituaries, but each of these were confirmed by the Secretary of State, other public records, and all contain public obituaries matching the dates of birth, the address, the city of origin, the sex, and the location and city of residence. This particular voter died on 9/29 of 2020 and cast a ballot on October 10th of 2020, dying prior to the ballots being mailed. This particular voter was canceled deceased, died on 9/27 of 2020, and as you can see, the ballot envelope is dated 9/16/2020. Ballots were not mailed by the state of Arizona until October 7th. This voter on 9/27/2020 passed away, a U.S. Navy man who ended up having a ballot cast in his name on October 9th of 2020. This voter passed away on 9/10 of 2019, voted in more than one election, and had moved to Illinois, where they passed away with their loved ones prior to this election, casting a vote on October 12th of 2020. This voter passed away on 9/29/2020, had a funeral service at Veterans Memorial, and then voted on October 6th. And remember, ballots are not issued in the mail until October 7th. This voter passed away on October 1st of 2020, and a ballot was cast in their name on 10/23/2020. Again, passed away on October 1st, and as you can see on this envelope with the red arrow, the family cast vote in this voter's name or some other person notified the county that they were deceased on their signature card, gave the death date, and this passed through the system without any scrutiny or curing period. This voter again passed away on October 1st, and a ballot was cast in her name on October 16th of 2020. Passed away September 30th of 2020. A ballot cast October 12th of 2020. Passed away October 19th of 2020, a ballot cast October 20th of 2020. Ballots were received by the wrong officer in charge of elections. We found ballot envelopes that were stamped received by Larimer County, November 3rd, 2020. Larimer County is located in Colorado. We found ballot images stamped received by Coconino County, November 3rd, 2020. We found ballot images stamped and received by Pima County, November 3rd, 2020. Per ARS 16550 subsection A, officers in charge of elections must receive the ballots no later than 7 p.m. on election day. We have located in our analyzation 56 ballots received on election day in other counties and states that were counted even though they were late ballots and should not have been accepted. This is an example of one of those ballots. This ballot envelope is documented received on 11/3/2020 and stamped received by Coconino County. Overall, we have, this number has changed and I will give you the new number, but we have located over 17,822 mismatched and accepted ballots in our minimal 5% analysis. I will show you examples. To the left is the signature on the ballot envelope. To the right, lower, is the signature on the voter registration card. Accepted without curing. To the left, voter, ballot envelope. To the right, signature.
All right, so this is where we're going to get into the crowd participation. So I'm going to ask you, pass or fail?
Fail.
Fail.
Next, please. Pass or fail?
Fail.
Fail. Fail. Fail.
Pass or fail?
Fail.
Pass or fail?
Fail. Fail. And we didn't even go through the training.
And this is what the election workers have to deal with when they're screening these things. This is all the more reason why Prop 309 needs to pass. That is a huge fix in the system. Now, think about being an election worker and volunteer and having to deal with this.
Yeah.
You don't have the right information. You don't have the time to check it. It's a huge burden on the system. It bogs it down. And what happens with human nature. You're being pressured for speed, and you do what? You pass it through. So is this a pass or fail?
Fail.
Next.
This next one that you're looking at was an example of one that actually was rejected by signature verification, looked at by a second level management. It had no date, no phone number, and it was stamped and verified approved.
Wow.
So we'll put you in the driver's seat. So every time you say pass or fail, so go to the next screen.
That would always have to say the name.
Fail. Fail. Fail.
Didn't say anything. Just said L.
Fail. 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 Fail.
Does it make sense who did these?
Fail. Mules. Fail. Fail. No. Fail.
Yeah.
These are examples of some that were later approved.
So the ones that don't say they approved means they didn't even get questioned, is that correct?
Correct.
This example here, as you can tell, it is a fail. It was stamped and approved. And there is written on the envelope, see enclosed note, RE signature. Once again, we go back to statute and the Voter Privacy Act, which does not allow for an inspector to look through a ballot for anything to justify that signature.
Fail. Fail.
As you guys can see, many of these ballots contain two S's written in different patterns. We identified well over 100 so far that have two S's documented for the signature, many of which didn't even contain an S in the name of the voter.
Fail.
The total ballots we have reviewed to date is 104,820. We found 20,232 mismatched signatures, similar to what you just saw.
20%.
We found 609 voters that were not registered at the time of the election, 49 stamped COVID unable to sign, 17 positively confirmed dead, 25 confirmed duplicate voters, 44 blank, 56 received from another state or county, 170 that are Arizona Secretary of State canceled because of felony voter right loss, for a total failure rate of 21,202 out of 104,820 analyzed. Our team will continue to analyze and have new numbers provided to the Senate in the future.
And it was 5% of the total.
And this is, right, this is 5% of the total Maricopa County elections. Now, once again, we're not going to disparage the current administration. We're hoping that we bring some attention and light to what happened in 2020. And since they're going through the process of counting and counting ballots and analyzing signatures, that they will actually be very diligent to make sure that this doesn't happen again. That we have people that are dedicated to doing their job. They want to do the right thing, but we got to be able to give them the tools to do that. And when sometimes that tool is giving them some leeway and some time to get the job done, because accuracy is more important than speed. The elections do not belong to us electeds; they belong to the people. It is their currency as an American citizen. Now, I want to point out something about the confirmed dead people. Think about that. They're dead. And this is identity theft. So these people are actually being victimized after they've passed away. Think about those veterans that are on there. A lot of American blood and treasure was spent and spilled, so that way we would be able to live in a country which is free and safe, and hopefully have free and fair elections. So members, we have a big job ahead of us next term. We need to fix this issue. This is not a Republican or a Democrat issue. This is an election people issue. This is the currency of an American citizen, a citizen of Arizona, to ensure that they are picking and electing the right people for the right job. So once again, we're not disparaging or pointing fingers at the current administrations. I encourage all the county recorders and elections officials within the state to take a hard look at their process, their SOP, the way they're doing things, and the way they're training. Because training is maintaining and maintaining is training. And we need to make sure that it is accurate. Because one illicit vote undermines and takes away the legitimate vote. It is incumbent upon all of us as elected officials to actually finally deliver that with something that they are entitled to as American citizens. Thank you very much for showing up today. And I know this is a long process, and we could have gone on for hours on the mismatch, but in essence of time, we kind of had to cut it off because at 4 a.m. it gets tedious, so we just want to the team needs to get some sleep. But we're going to continue digging, we're going to continue analyzing, because we need to make sure and be able to hand this information off to the elected officials, so that way they know how to correct their system that's already in place. Thanks for joining me today. God bless you. Improve your net. Hire a vet.
Thank you.